Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sticks and Bricks, a podcast that takes you behind the scenes of luxury custom home building. With me, Sherwin Loudermilk, your host and president of Loudermilk Custom Homes, where we believe in the mantra, build it like it's yours. Have you ever wondered what goes into creating a custom dream home? Well, you're in the right place. In each episode, we'll dive deep into building science processes and construction business practices through interviewing leaders in the industry. We'll discuss the world of home design and construction by sharing stories, insights, and the secrets that make Loudermilk Homes the leader in Georgia and Western North Carolina. And here's something special for you. Stay tuned at the end of each episode for our Builder Pro Tips segment. We'll provide actual items and insights for you to use on your own projects so you can turn inspiration into action. At Sticks and Bricks, we want to make your journey into luxury custom home building both informative and practical. So buckle up, get ready for a fascinating ride through the world of custom luxury home design and construction. Let's build something extraordinary together. Welcome to Sticks and Bricks. Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Sticks and Bricks. I'll be your host, Sherwin Loudermilk. Nice to meet you all. But for our first episode, I'm actually going to be interviewed by Mary Jane Credeur. Mary Jane, welcome.
Hi, Sherwin. Thank you so much for making time today. It's great to kick off our inaugural podcast. And first question for you, why are we doing this podcast? What are we hoping to get out of this? And how are we going to use it to tell our clients more about what we do?
It was really interesting. I spent some time on artificial intelligence, and we were working with AI to understand our entire digital footprint and what we're doing and how we're doing it. And what we realized is that we weren't spending a lot of time discussing what we do with clients and really the benefits of how we do things, the building science behind we do things. And so it was interesting that it took artificial intelligence to let me know that this is something that we need to focus on. And what a better way and medium than a podcast to just kind of explain what we do and how we do by interviewing some of the top people in the industry.
Take us back to the beginning of Loudermilk Homes, when you originally had the vision and started it and thought there might be a business in here.
Wow, that was a while back. We are just past 14 years old as a company, and we started as really a developer. So I went and received my MBA in finance and real estate, specifically to go find pieces of land, develop them out. And I did that, found our first lot, 26 acres. We converted it into 13 lots, and then we sat on it and it didn't sell. And we were wondering, okay, what do we need to do to turn this around? And then I finally just said, why don't we just put a house on it? And we were looking for builders to build a house and couldn't really find the right builder. And I finally just said, I'll just do it on my own. And learned the hard way. Hard knocks, never built a house before, did some renovations before, hired a lot of really smart people to teach me. And then we built our first house, made a lot of mistakes, but learned from those mistakes. And then what I realized is that development can only take you so far, but it's really the transformation of a piece of property. People don't want to buy dirt. People want to buy a home. And so we started building more and more, and they kept selling as speculative homes. And from there, Loudermilk Homes was born.
What was your original vision back then? What did you think success was going to look like in, say, 5 or 10 years?
I thought it was just going to be development. So just land. I was going to take out big parcels of land and have 4 or 5 different builders that I'm building for, or building the land for, and then sell them off that way. I never envisioned that it would go so far to having a complete home building business where now our main focus is home building. It's not development.
Yeah. When did you realize the company was really hitting its stride and that this was going to become a more successful business than you originally thought?
Probably when the first time I built a multi-million-dollar house. So prior to that, we were building smaller homes and competing with the big home builders, D.R. Horton's and Ryan Homes, I remember, was in one of our subdivisions, and Pulte. And we just couldn't compete with them. They were putting in some lower quality items, which is great. They have a great model and it works for them. But we were putting a lot of love into our houses. But because we were in the same neighborhood, we had to have about the same price point. And it wasn't until I realized, let me go, how can I not compete with these big guys? They have these massive marketing engines. And my thought was, well, let me go into over $1 million. At the time, none of the big guys were building over $1 million homes. And let me make it fully customizable, which we were doing anyway. And from a production building perspective, they wouldn't even touch anything like that. And so that right after we built our first two, I think it was a 1.2 and a $1.3 million house, I realized this is the vision for Loudermilk Homes. This is the market that I want to be in. And we haven't switched since. Every home since then has been, it just become more and more expensive. And we stay in that high-end luxury space.
And along the way, you had to build a full company from the ground up. You had to set a culture, you had to set processes and methods, and really this blueprint for start to finish, from that design inspiration phase all the way through how we do what we do. Talk a little bit about that. How did you develop those processes and refine them along the way? And then we'll come back to culture in a second.
Well, processes are near and dear to my heart because I used to be a computer science guy. So I had my undergrad is in computer information systems. And so as part of computer science, you learn about processes heavily. And in fact, when I was working at IBM, one of my job roles was as a process consultant. So it was something that I understood very well. And I realized real quickly that, hey, why not create processes for the custom space? Not many builders do that. Most custom builders have enough to where they're just managing it themselves, but there are not many processes to be able to build a larger business with. And so I thought, let me see if I can create that set of processes based on mistakes that I made. So throughout years, every time we'd make a mistake, we'd create a process to fix that mistake. And so it wasn't something that just started over, we created something overnight. We created it over many, many years of little tweaks, and we still do it today. We constantly are readjusting our processes based on if there was a mistake, okay, how can we create a process to define a way to where we can eliminate this mistake? And what's really interesting today is that we're batting 1,000 on this. If we make a mistake, somebody in our company somehow or another missed the process, but the
Yep.
processes are defined there. So if we follow those processes, we should be able to build an amazing home with all the quality that we put into our homes.
One of the things about manufacturing and industrial that makes the business hum and makes candidly also higher profit margins is the fact that they design something and then they build 10,000 of them. We have literally never built the same home twice, not once. Every single home is different. Why does that make processes and methods so much more important than it would in other settings?
Oh, wow, because there's so many variables, right? So when you build a home, let's say it's a big production builder, they will build a home sometimes in a factory and
Mhm.
they get all their engineers in to really understand it. And then they build it twice in the field and those same engineers carry it along. Not to mention they're more simplistic homes. And so they really fine tune that process. We're building the first home one time. That's it. And so you have people that, everyone makes mistakes. We're all human. So I tell our whole team, architects are making 5% mistakes. Designers are making 5% mistakes. Our project managers are making mistakes. So the processes are there to try to make sure that we solve those mistakes prior to them actually hitting the field as best as we can. But there are a lot of unknowns in custom building. And so in our processes, for those of you that are process junkies out there, we have a lot of if-then statements. If this happens, do this. If that happens, do that. Something as simple as hardwood floors, if it's site finished versus prefabricated, and you put them in, you install them in completely different times during the schedule, and we need to be able to adjust that on the fly. If our client just states, "Hey, I'd like to have some engineered wood that's pre-finished," and so we have to be able to adjust that. And that's where those processes have to be able to be adjusted quickly.
And that feeds back into also our culture, right? And setting a culture where you've got this entrepreneurial mindset. You've got to be nimble. You've got to be the CEO of your line of work, of your job, of your role. And we have the saying of build it like it's yours. Talk a little bit about why that culture is so important and making the company run smoothly.
I think it's critical. And I went on my culture journey about 5 or 6 years ago to transform the culture of our company. And I would say that I probably spend about 30% of my time just on the culture right now. And that's a lot of time for somebody that's a CEO of a fairly large company. So the way we treat all of our employees is if they're all executives, right? We want everyone to feel like they can make the decision, all the way down to our field engineers that are coming right out of college to our senior project managers. We want them to understand that they're allowed to make the decision and the call. Now, make an intelligent decision, but make the decision and we will have their back. and come to work when you need to, leave when you need to, really truly be treated like an executive. If you have family emergency, if you need to go to the doctor, go. We're not one of these companies that are watching the clock as people come
Mhm.
in and leave. But that sense of executive ownership truly makes people feel as if they're building the home. It's their home. It's no longer just a corporate home that we're building. They have a passion towards making sure that that home is built correctly. So yeah, culture plays a large role in making sure that our company ends up with the type of quality product that we want.
For a while there, Loudermilk Homes got into the spec home business, a speculative home where we're building a home that we don't have an owner or a buyer for. We're bearing the cost of building that home and carrying that forward. And I think for a while there, it was a pretty high ratio. I think 80-20, something like that, spec versus custom homes. And that's flipped. I mean, we do almost entirely custom homes now. Talk a little bit about that evolution and why did we make that change and why was it good for business and good for clients?
Sure. So, and we still do speculative homes. Usually, when we start a subdivision, we will create some homes, and I call it going vertical. So, when we have a subdivision, for example, we have a brand new subdivision in Buckhead called Blue Heron,
Mhm.
and it's just 11 lots,
Mhm.
and very few people see what those homes are going to look like. It's supposed to be a French Tudor with a modern twist to it. Well, when we say that, how does a client truly understand what that is? Now we're creating three-dimensional models
Mhm.
and renderings and all those good things, but they still don't truly understand what it's going to be like until we go vertical. And
Mhm.
so that's why we go vertical and build the homes. And once we build a couple of spec homes in a community, usually then the remaining homes go into that custom where clients come in, buy a lot, and we custom design the home for them. But that's really why the evolution happened. So when I was a developer and we're buying a lot of land, we're wanting to move that land. And so we continue to put homes on those lots, go vertical on them. And then as those homes build, we move to additional custom homes. And of course, there's some locations, if we find an amazing lot in Buckhead or Sandy Springs that's just a gorgeous lot for a good price, we'll
Mhm.
purchase that lot and put another speculative home on it. The house in your background was done like that. So that
Mhm.
is a speculative home that we built, and it's right in Sandy Springs. So that is something that we focused on and said, okay, there's a good value here to do it. And the other thing is that people love coming in at the finish line. They don't want to wait. A lot of people struggle with waiting 2 years. Not everybody. We have a lot of custom clients, but
Sure.
it's a lot easier to come into a house and say, hey, there's 6 months to go, and you can pick all of your colors and a few of your selections inside the home. Might not give them 100% of that custom feel, but it still gives them a feeling of, hey, it's my home and I get to have a brand new home in only 6 months. So speculative homes have helped us a lot, but customs are definitely where we're leaning towards.
With speculative homes, too, your point, often we'll have a client who's maybe an executive at one of the large corporations in Atlanta, someone in the movie or entertainment industry, a professional athlete, someone, a business owner. They might be moving in from another market. They want to get in that house before school starts. They've got constraints on that. So having speculative homes, a couple of them at least, also helps somebody take possession sooner.
Absolutely. And in Atlanta being such a transient city, for sure, it helps out in them knowing, hey, I can move right in and not have to wait this longer time frame.
One big benefit for Loudermilk Homes is having in-house architecture. When did Loudermilk Homes bring that to the table, and how much of a difference does that make in being able to get renderings quickly, make changes, the things that really keep the client happy?
Sure. About 70% of what we do is in-house architecture. 30% we work with outside architects. So we've worked with architects from, definitely in Atlanta and North Atlanta, Cashiers and Highlands area, but also world-class people from New York or Miami. The reason we created this division is that everyone's busy. And so there are times where we need answers quickly to be able to move efficiently through the process. And then also every builder is different. So our needs are slightly different than the next builder's needs because they choose to do things in a slightly different way. So having that in-house architecture has helped us tremendously in analyzing architect files and creating them in a format that our builders truly understand. And then when we need to make changes, we need to, our clients want to move walls, we can instantly jump to it. Three-dimensional renderings, being able to play almost like a video game and you're walking through your house, you can see the furniture, you can see everything. And I know other architects do it, but what we can do is interconnect the furniture with that and show them how it sits onto the site, but also be able to price that out in real time. So as
Yeah.
the client says, hey, I'd like to move this, usually if it's a third party architect, that architect is going to make the change. Then it has to go back to the builder. And that's a lot of time back and forth if the client doesn't want to pay that extra price. We can give them a high level understanding right there of, hey, are you sure you're okay with this change before we make that move? We think it's going to be roughly this cost. And so it's really a one-stop shop for us with our clients.
And I've also seen some really cool effects too, especially in Cashiers and Highlands, North Carolina, where we've got our newish division that's been there for a few years. We can also do stuff that shows what the mountain view is going to look like off the back porch and how the sun is going to set and move through the sky. And what does your kitchen, your breakfast area look like in the morning versus in the evening? And it really gives you a very realistic 3D sensation of what it's going to look like to live in that space.
Oh, absolutely. We're using Google Earth and the county's GIS system, and we're incorporating all of that into the
Mhm.
plans so that our clients can literally see if there's a mountain view in the background, you can literally see that mountain view. And when we're designing, it's no longer that we're designing and then we get to the site and say, oh, let's make a change. Of course, we're looking at that too.
Mhm.
But virtually, we can say, hey, is this what you want to see out of this window? If not, let's twist it and make sure
Yeah.
that you're looking at the correct view. We did this with the golf course view. There was a green that was just slightly off centered. And so we created a 45-degree angle to the family room so that you could see down and look right at the green instead of kind of being off center. We wouldn't have been able to do that if we didn't have everything set up the way that we did. And I'm not just talking about the lots near us. I'm talking about items far in the distance where you can
Yeah.
now see it because it's in that, it's placed on Google Earth so that you can see.
What made you decide that it was the right place and right time to open up the new Cashiers and Highlands division? And how has that been different than Atlanta? They really are almost like two different companies.
It really is. Atlanta is a primary market. And what I mean by that is it's people's first homes.
Mhm.
Cashiers and Highlands, the vast majority of everyone that's purchasing out there, it's their second home. And working with somebody that's buying a second home versus a first home and in a vibrant city like Atlanta versus a very calm mountain community like Cashiers or Highlands, it's a different world. And we were really hesitant to move in. My mother, just by chance, before she passed away, she had purchased a lot in one of these auctions that you see online, and she purchased it in Cashiers. And so we always had an idea to build something there just using that land. And then it seemed like one thing after another, there was an opportunity, another opportunity, another opportunity. And the more we looked at it, the more we realized that there's something to be said about Cashiers and Highlands. That plateau, as what they call it, and it's considered Western North Carolina,
Mhm.
is the wealthiest mountain community east of the Mississippi. So it allows us to build in the same format that we're
Mhm.
building in Atlanta. So it's still multi-million dollar homes. It still has to have the same level of service, quality, the higher expense for operations to be able to build a home like this. And so what we found is that we didn't want to move into a market to where we changed our product. We didn't want to
Mhm.
go down and build townhomes, for example, because that's not what we specialize in. What we wanted to do is still specialize in multi-million dollar houses. And it was a natural fit. Not to mention, about 60% of people that purchase mountain homes in Cashiers and Highlands come from Atlanta. Another
Mhm.
20% pass through Atlanta. So we can still work with our clients in Atlanta on all of the things that we need to, such as going shopping for selections and countertops and things of that nature, and then pull those resources to Atlanta for the build.
Can you talk a little bit more about the work that goes into designing and building a Loudermilk home? We've got this 9-step process to perfection. We talked a little bit about our business processes and our methods internally earlier, but talk a little bit about, from start to finish, it's usually a 2-year process. A tremendous amount of work goes into that before we even turn the first shovel full of dirt. Talk a little bit about what kind of work goes into that. How involved is that?
So it's very involved. So our first 3 steps of that 9-step process are all pre-construction. And I've
Mhm.
always touted that I feel like pre-construction is more important than construction.
Mhm.
If you really analyze the project up front and you cross all your T's and dot all your I's and make sure that the architecture is set up in the right format, that everything is connected correctly, your structural engineering is finalized, your civil engineering is finalized, but most importantly, that you're interconnecting design into architecture,
Mhm.
right? So we're doing space planning for people's current furniture to make sure that the rooms are fitting correctly. And so that interconnecting to make sure that the design boards or the future look and feel that the client is looking for
Mhm.
matches what the architecture of the home is. We don't want to do things in silos. And
Right.
so all of that interconnectivity makes such a big difference. We also pick out all of our selections before, like you said, before we start grading. Most custom builders don't do that.
Mhm.
It's a massive process that we do to be able to get all of those things up front. Now we have all the pieces of the puzzle. So
Yeah.
when we have all those pieces, we know that the selections that are going in, we can block accordingly. We can re-put design the structural components. We have everything ready. So our pre-construction process takes a little bit longer than most other builders. But
Mhm.
then our construction is what's cut down because we have all of these pieces of that puzzle. And it really turns out to be a much better and efficient build in the long run. Most of our clients are saying that we kind of help stretch their dollars as much as we can. It was a
Yeah.
rough ride during COVID and supply chain. And I know some of our clients were frustrated at the price increases, and the delays, but we were about 30% longer in time during that time frame because of what we did. I know other custom builders that were 2x,
Doubled.
200%,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
250% longer because they would get to the framing stage and then order plumbing or get to that stage and order windows where we've already ordered our windows and our plumbing months and months in advance.
Transparency is a big deal. Tell me about what that looks like at Loudermilk Homes. And spoiler alert for the listeners, sometimes it's a little messy.
Yeah, so we, again, using my computer information systems undergrad degree, I'm really big in technology. And so we utilize technology for this transparency. So we have what's called Loudermilk Connect. There's a construction management software. There's video cameras on all your our job sites that show what's happening. And what we tell our clients is that we want you to see everything that we see. If we make a mistake, we want you to know. We put in daily logs daily. We take probably 2,500 to 3,000 pictures of each home, and we send out in during those daily reports to our clients. So we're trying to show them everything that we're seeing. We're
Mhm.
essentially opening up the hood to the car and they're seeing the engine run, but they're seeing the grease and the oil, right? And
Yeah.
so there are times where some clients look and they go, why'd that happen? I go, because we opened up the hood. You're seeing behind the scenes, but we want
Yeah.
them to. I feel that is the best way to run a business, to
Yeah.
just be transparent and open. If we make a mistake, own that mistake immediately and say, hey, this is the mistake that we made and this is how we corrected it. Even if it's not something that's our mistake. If we
Sure.
have to let go a subcontractor because they don't meet our quality standards, which are very
Mhm.
high, and so it happens, and the project is delayed 2 weeks. That client is going to be a little frustrated. I'd rather tell them right there than wait until the very end. And so they're seeing it in real time when we let the subcontractor go and when the new subcontractor is starting and what that process is. And again, sometimes we have to have difficult conversations, but we know or we believe that our clients believe that we're looking after their best interest by being transparent to them.
Does every client really go through the emotional roller coaster?
Yeah. So as part of the National Home Builders Association, there's this thing called a emotional roller coaster chart.
Yeah.
And they did statistics based on, I can't remember how many, I think it was 3,000 clients that recently built a home. And literally during certain times within construction, they will, the happiness meter is high versus low. And it
Mhm.
makes sense. So right after framing, that doesn't take very long to do, where the clients can come in and see their homes,
Yeah.
they're at the highest during construction because they're
Yeah.
like, wow, in 6, 7 weeks, you built my home. And then we take 2 to 3 months to do mechanicals because we do a fairly large homes and
Yeah.
very complicated mechanicals. And they get a little frustrated. It's not just our clients, every client does it. And so I can't tell you how many times we've talked to clients, we've told them about this emotional roller coaster. And then afterwards they come back and said, well, wait a minute, I'm a little frustrated at this section. I say, well, you're in the mechanicals. Remember, I told you there was going to be a lot of delays as we're
Right.
waiting for inspectors to come by and
Yeah.
mechanicals to come back and fix their items. And they go, oh, yeah, you did say that. That's right. So we see that roller coaster ride with a lot of our clients.
What do you wish more clients knew going into the process of designing and building a custom luxury home? Like, what are the misconceptions or things that they just don't understand about how that works, or things that surprise them?
For the most part, our clients that go fairly smooth is when they've already custom built before
Hmm.
because they know where they're going into, and our processes make things very easy.
Hmm.
But custom building a home is not easy.
Hmm.
It is strap in because it's a bumpy ride. I feel like we do it better than most, but even with all of the things we do, it can be a journey that's a little uncomfortable. Sometimes it's the spouse is not agreeing to things. I
Sure.
find that sometimes we're more marriage counselors than anything else as we're trying to
Sure.
manage those expectations. But also in their mind, a lot of times our clients, when they haven't custom built a home before, they have a mindset of, oh, this is going to be as easy as buying a resale home or buying a production home. And what they're not understanding is that in a production home, everything is picked out, or a resale
Yeah.
house, it's already there. Here, as a pure custom luxury home, there are thousands of options, and we have to get into those thousands of options. And then those thousands of options, there are times where they don't work well together, right? Certain
Sure.
selections don't. So we're out there as their consultant trying to make sure all of these things work out. And sometimes it can be daunting for a client that's never been through that process. But I will say that clients that have been through the process, I find are very appreciative of understanding what they went through before and then
Sure.
seeing how much smoother it is coming with us.
And you don't know what you don't know going into it as well, right? A client who's never done that before doesn't understand how the industry works quite closely. And the fact that you've never built their house before, this is a one-shot deal, and all
Right.
the decisions that have to go into that. It's a tremendous amount of work, and they're making thousands and thousands of decisions along the way.
I
So,
tell my employees that this is the hardest industry in the world. And I truly believe it. I mean, the only
yeah,
thing that I can think of is healthcare in an emergency
yeah,
room.
sure,
Because even, rocket science, there's a lot less emotion, right? When
sure,
you're talking about a custom home, you're talking about the place that their
yeah,
family is going to be living, their children are going to be there, they're
yeah,
going to be entertaining in, and it's their oasis. And so there's a
yeah.
lot of emotional connections, and it's not just a business transaction. So we're very aware of that, and we try to set expectations accordingly.
A differentiator that Loudermilk Homes does as well is value engineering, looking for ways to stretch that buck. Tell us a few of the ways that you do value engineering. And it begins with how you're situating the home on the lot, right? Where the trees and the natural sun and shade patterns are. Walk us through what that means to value engineer a home along the way, because it continues throughout the entire process, and mechanicals and framing. And what does that mean?
Kind of talked about it earlier where we have all the pieces of the puzzle. And
Hmm.
so by having those pieces of the puzzle, we can then put them in a format of our schedule to make sure that it's efficient. But
Hmm.
also by having those pieces of the puzzle, we're not having to do near the amount of redos because we understand what we're getting into. And so if we're looking at a room size, we may say, hey, look, let's make that room size a little bigger in our architecture because by making it larger, we don't have to cut any beams. The beams come
Yeah,
standard every 2 feet. So if you have
sure.
an odd size room size, you basically are going to cut a foot off anyway, and you're wasting lumber. So there are a lot of value engineered items that don't take away from the quality in any capacity. I mean, that's one
Mhm.
thing that's top priority to us, but it's cutting the fat, right? And cutting the fat from the build. That's why I tell all my clients, please don't ask me to start an architecture without knowing the lot. We
Yeah,
want to understand and the topography of the lot, where the lot's situated, the comfort of the lot. Obviously, if you have a flat lot, it's easy. But in Atlanta or in the mountains of Cashiers and Highlands, we don't have flat lots. And
yeah,
so we want to design the home to where it's most efficient build. So we want to put the garage at the high side. Maybe the lot goes up in the back. So then let's put a portico in. So we're designing for the lot. One of the things we do religiously is put in basketball courts in basements that have steep topography. So if
mhm,
there's a huge drop off, why not take advantage of that and put an indoor basketball court in the basement? And so, yes, it costs a little bit more, but not near what it would cost if we had to just go straight down into the ground. So we do a lot of that through consultation back with our clients.
This is probably many, many years away, but eventually you'll retire and hand the reins over to a next generation to run the company. When people look back someday, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want Loudermilk Homes to look like in the rearview mirror?
Our vision statement is 100% referenceability. I know that's a made up term, but basically we want every home that we build for not just our clients, but our subcontractors, our vendors that we work with, our real estate teams, our design teams, our architecture teams, to all agree that this is a wonderful home and this is something that we would reference. And then our mission statement is to build homes that leave a legacy. And so we want to leave a legacy. We want our homes to last 100 years. And so putting that quality in, spending that extra amount of money for the flashing techniques that we do and the roof underlayments and the waterproofing, all those things that most clients don't understand and don't see. When they're looking at a finished home, they're going, well, what's the difference? They look the same from the outside. But it's all those things on the inside that leave that legacy to where the clients don't have all those problems after the fact. And so I think it's a combination of the referenceability and us leaving a legacy.
And that already is there. We have some clients who have come back and asked us, and we have designed and built their second home or a third home, or maybe they had to move to a different part of town. We're getting some repeat and three-peat clients who have also word of mouth. We have one who's referred us to someone else, who then referred us to someone else, who then referred us to someone else. And it's great to see that legacy already starting to take root.
Sure. No, it's wonderful.
On the next few episodes of our new podcast series, we'll be digging deeper into some of the technical details. We'll bring on some of our vendor partners and technical experts who will be talking about things like design, waterproofing, flashing on windows, roof underlayments. We're really going to get into the thick of the science, the building science behind what we do. Any last thoughts on this first podcast, Sherwin?
No, I mean, thank you for interviewing me as the host. It's good to be interviewed every once in a while as well. But I'm really looking forward to the other podcasts where we really geek out on the technical aspects of the home. Why do we make the decisions that we make? There are 3 different ways to get level 5 drywall. There's probably 10 different ways to flash a window. Why did we choose to do the things that we did? And that's what we want to geek out on and go through with some of the top people in the industry.
Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to having our next series run soon. Please come back and tune in next time.
I hope you found these tips valuable. If you have questions or want to share your experiences, please reach out. We're here to support you. Thank you for being part of Sticks and Bricks, and stay tuned for more inspiration. Make sure to subscribe below. Until next time, I'm Sherwin Loudermilk, signing off. Thank you for listening.